Good evening, Entropians. Julian McBain here, and tonight we are doing a 50 ped hunt over by Boreas using the LB-15. I'm pretty sure I repaired everything before I logged out last night. Let's just double check. Yep, looks like I did all the smart things I'm supposed to do. So, got the audio figured out on my machine. Picked up a Yeti, and it took me a couple of attempts to figure out how to make the in-game audio actually work. In fact, I lost 5 hours of gameplay in the game Prey. Oh, that was just fantastic. Talk about lag. And had to do it all over because of in-game audio issues. So we got it figured out, as you can see, but that was definitely interesting. Unfortunately, throughout all that, I did not realize that I mistook the date that Merry Mayhem ended as today, and it was actually yesterday at 2 p.m. UTC. So I went to finish Merry Mayhem yesterday, and yeah, it was gone. So I missed out on my second run of Merry Mayhem by just a little bit. Not the ending to the redo I wanted, but not much I can really do about it. So instead, we'll be doing this 50 ped hunt while since I wasn't able to do my planned hunt yesterday. I'll be doing my 50 ped hunt today and figure out where we're going to go from here for next time. So, and as the channel's developed, I've tried to figure out what path to go on, and, we all have our niche. And I think that one of the places I believe I'm doing fairly well is utilization of being able to work out thoughts. And some of these things are hard to kind of tackle, especially in this type of a platform, because we've got video game play going on. You have to mix it in with what you're actually doing in game. But since Entropia Universe is probably one of the more laid-back gaming experiences, it's not like a first-person shooter where you have to be on the ball 100% of the time, but it doesn't mean you can ignore it. I got to thinking that maybe it's a good place to. I want to try turning my Entropia Universe gameplay vids into a kind of netcast, or a hybrid model of, part netcast and part gameplay. Because I feel like there's a market for. No, maybe that's the wrong word for it. I feel like there is, in the gaming community, there's a lot of intelligence. There's a huge amount of intelligence in the gaming community, and I think that a lot of people believe that we're not utilizing our intelligence to great effect, and although I believe they're incorrect in that assumption, how can we prove to them that all of the hours that we spend in our virtual worlds aren't a gigantic waste of time? And of course, a certain amount of entertainment and relaxation is well earned at the end of a workday, and it's that's our entitlement. I don't want to use the word entitlement. We have earned that time to take our ease and rest our weary feet after our labors. But at the same time, I feel like there's almost a disconnect between gamers and the public at large, in that they feel like and I don't want to single out any group, but probably the most obvious stereotype is the 13-year-old first-person shooter gamer. And this is by no means a general. I am not placing this label on 13-year-old first-person shooter gamers, but it's generally believed, or at least what I've experienced from commentary, including inside the gaming community, is that your average 13-year-old first-person shooter gamer is a troll, and they're unintelligent, and they spend all their time playing video games. And while there are definitely people out there that are like that, I don't believe that's the general population. In fact, I remember one of my favorite YouTubers mentioning the idea of that, you know, spending, you know, a teen or an adult who lives in their parents' basement and is covered in Cheeto dust. And honestly, that stereotype is, I think, probably the most detrimental vision of what a gamer might be in our experience. And so I really want to try to combat that. And how to combat that's really difficult, because in some ways we do it to ourselves. You know, not because that's how we actually are, but because we kind of laugh at the stereotype when it comes up. And that's fine. We should always take, you know, we should never take ourselves too seriously. I think that's causing a lot of the problems in the world right now, is people are taking themselves too seriously. And they don't look at the humor of things before they look at the seriousness of it. But at the same time, being able to show that, you know, maybe that might be 0.5% of the gamer population, and the vast majority of us are, you know, hardworking. We have jobs, we have lives. And honestly, I think this is more prevalent in the WoW community. It's definitely not super prevalent in the Entropia Universe community, because Entropia Universe has a real world economy, and if we weren't putting cash into it, it wouldn't exist. So obviously we all have jobs. Or we're damn good at the game. Either one's acceptable to me, because honestly, once you get to a certain point, this game is pretty much a job. Or if you do what I'm doing and, you know, you're producing content for it, then whether or not you're getting paid, it turns into a job. And it occurred to me that it's funny, I was thinking about what content I was putting out for the channel and how to design the schedule and how I wanted to release content as I started putting Prey together. And I was going to hold off on Prey for a while for a couple of reasons. One, I didn't want to overload myself, and I'm already putting out, you know, 7 days worth of content a week. Or I should say I'm spending about an hour a day in content creation. And that's between the actual creation, the production, especially for Entropia Universe videos. But it also is, you know, uploading things, making sure the channel's strong, checking on statistics and things of that nature. But even though it's kind of turned into a part-time job, even though I don't get paid for it at this point, I didn't mind it. And to me that was kind of a revelation. You know what I mean? Because how many people here, you know, realize that they're turning a hobby into a job and they're not getting paid for it, but they're okay with that. And so just trying to figure that, you know, find that unique niche, because obviously the Let's Play videos I'm doing, the one-player games, which, you know, I've got We Happy Few, I've got Crash Bandicoot, I've got a few episodes of Prey packed away. I'm going to release those on a schedule. I haven't figured out that schedule yet, but they're in the can, so to speak, to use the movie production terminology. Figuring out how I'm going to continue with this trend and what kind of unique selling point. And I wanted to start a netcast, and I realized that if I start a netcast or a podcast and using the Entropia Universe as a backdrop, I'd be adding more work to myself. And I thought, well, how can I continue to do it without adding more work? And in some ways, I'm like, well, who cares? I'm enjoying what I'm doing. But then again, once you start producing content, you don't want to stop, because you get viewers built up and there's an expectation there. So I guess my thought is I can use this time to talk about the things I really want to talk about, because I don't need to be so focused on the possibility that there's something lurking around the corner. And if any of you have played Prey, that's a real problem in that game. I'm certainly not going to be talking about any heavy issues there. Other than the fact that a coffee cup might have just killed me. And if you don't know what I mean by that, actually, you know what? If you don't know what I mean by that, Serial Overdrive is currently playing Prey. Go check out his playthrough. He's doing a real good job of it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how that turns out. So anyway, what I think I'm going to do is I might turn my Entropia videos into a kind of netcast or a podcast where I discuss these issues, much like I've been doing in my Saturday vlogs. And I would love to hear some input on that. You know, if that's the kind of content you like or want, please drop a comment. I would love to know. If I don't hear anything, then I'll proceed and hope for the best. Hopefully I don't lose, 3/4 of my subscribers. But, and the reason I say 3/4 and not all of them is because the last quarter I actually know IRL, and even if I'm putting out stupid content, they'd probably remain subscribed to me just because they're really nice people. But I think that's the direction I'm going to go with it. And I kind of wanted to jump into it today, and I'm a little late to the party on this one, but that's okay. As all of you have, I'm sure, know by now, I've been listening to a lot of Jordan Peterson, and I listened to the audiobook of 12 Rules for Life. It was unabridged, so I don't want to... I'm going to use the term read, even though I technically didn't read it. I listened to someone reading it to me, because that way I was able to multitask. And when you try to walk a mile or more a day on a lunch break, and you're trying to get some sort of additional need filled, a need to expand your knowledge and things like that, having the ability to listen to audiobooks really helps. And like, I read 12 Rules for Life via audiobook, and now I'm reading 1984 by George Orwell. And having read Animal Farm years ago, I kind of have an idea for what an Orwellian nightmare meant, and I thought I knew. And Animal Farm, by its very nature, of course, classifies as an Orwellian nightmare, but I didn't realize just what the original Orwellian nightmare consisted of. And talk about a wake-up call. Holy shit. It can be depressing, and I mean that's the emotion it's looking to elicit from you, is that kind of depressing feel. And in fact, there's a lot of things I think, no, I don't think, I know for a fact We Happy Few took out of it, because even the job of the main character is changing history, and that's exactly what the first main character of We Happy Few, Arthur Hastings, is doing at the very beginning, is he's changing history by going through the newspapers. And so that was definitely, if nothing else, it was a definite homage to Orwell's 1984. But anyway, I listened through that, and I listened to the lectures, and he had a Q&A, and I might just drop a link to that Q&A in the description down below. But, excuse me. One of the things that he said really affected me, because I've been listening to a lot of his stuff, and I've been internalizing and processing it, and I don't even think I'm close to processing it all the way. But one of the things he said is, you have to earn the knowledge that you have, or that you receive, and don't regurgitate something and just call it your own. And that's really important, I think, because then you're not plagiarizing someone else's philosophy or the work they've done and saying, well, I know this, but you don't really know it. You know it because someone else told it to you. And so he said, put it in your own words. And something kind of niggled in the back of my mind, and I realized, we all learned this in the 70s from one of the greatest philosophers of our time, Yoda. I'm being tongue-in-cheek here, but no, seriously, Yoda said it in Star Wars, I think it was Return of the Jedi. Earn what you have learned. You have to earn what you have learned. And I thought about that for a minute. I'm like, what does that really mean? Earn what you have learned. And so, and throughout all of the things I've been watching in his lectures, I've started asking myself some hard questions. And I'll get into some of those questions probably in a later episode. But, earn what you have learned. And so I thought, well, how do we internalize what we learn? How do we know what we know? And I don't mean, where did we learn it from or anything like that. I mean, what constitutes knowledge? How do we synthesize and process the knowledge we gain? And so thinking about it, I remembered there's an anime, and I'm wearing my weeb on my sleeve here, called Stelvia of the Universe. And in Stelvia of the Universe, they use and educate, because of course it's a Japanese show, so of course they're all in high school, ordering their second profession of their lives. It's a high school where they're in space, and they use the International Baccalaureate system. And part of the International Baccalaureate system, which I think might be, aside perhaps from the current Japanese school system, it might be the most effective learning system out there. And I don't know that for certain, but I'm looking at the way they do things, I would be willing to put it in the top 5, if nothing else. And one of those things is the theory of knowledge. And so I looked up theory of knowledge on YouTube, because that's how, I really have the time to do things, is to listen and watch YouTube videos while I'm doing other things, right? Because I love to read. I miss being able to read on a regular basis, but unfortunately, like a lot of us, I work, and I'm a parent, and I have a significant other whose needs I have to attend to. And it's not that she can't attend to her own needs largely, but there's a certain amount of maintenance that any relationship has, and if you're not attending to that relationship appropriately, the relationship's not going to last long. It's going to be your fault, right? So, real life is a thing that I deal with, and I'm a member of 3 volunteer organizations, and I don't want to neglect them too much. So in order to get the necessary reading, I've resorted to audiobooks and to YouTube classes put out by good sources. And we're not just talking like Joe Schmo 725, who's going to talk to you about nuclear physics, and he doesn't, he's kind of reading verbatim out of a textbook or something like that and thinks he knows it. No, we're talking like University of Toronto professors. I think it's very ironic that the person who's teaching theory of knowledge and philosophy, I think her name Professor Nagel, and I don't remember if her first name's Jennifer or Jessica, and I apologize to her for that if she ever sees this. I've only seen 2 or 3 episodes of your theory of knowledge. No, I'm on episode 4, but I'm terrible with names. So I'm watching Professor Nagel's theory of knowledge series, and I think there's 12 or 13 videos of it on YouTube, and it's part of a philosophy channel. And how do we internalize and get that theory of knowledge? How do we know what we know? And I think it's really important that we figure that out, because we can do all this research, and we can write the essays, and we can write every day, which I've started to doing. I'm actually journaling every single day, and if you can ask any of my high school or grade school teachers journaling me, they'd probably look at you like you had 3 heads. But yes, I'm actually journaling on a daily basis to try to answer those hard questions. And I've asked myself some hard ones. Like I'm dealing with currently what I've been journaling about. I'm not going to get into the details of it. Is what past resentments of family, from my childhood, am I still internalizing? Am I still holding in? And how can I release those resentments? Because, I wouldn't say I had a terrible childhood. I didn't. But there were some definite hard spots because my family wasn't rich. And, having younger siblings who didn't see some of the harder aspects of what our family went through before they were born, I realized that could have generated some resentments in me. And so I'm processing those. But at the same time, it's, asking those questions. Well, how do we know what we know? How do we synthesize what we've learned? And so that's what I'm going through right now. And I think we're running low on ammo here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to really process that. And hopefully I have an answer for next time. Because honestly, I honestly don't think we take a hard enough look at ourselves. We let the mundane really take over, especially after we turn 21. And part of that's, really necessary. It's necessary for growth. We turn 21, we start legally drinking. I don't know how many people here actually, I don't know how many people listening actually waited until they were of legal age, although to be fair, if you're not in the United States, I'm using the US 21 age. I know that in a lot of Europe it's 18 or lower. But for I had to wait, or I was supposed to wait until I was 21. As it happened, I didn't. Like most American youngsters, I did wait until I was 20. But, you know, it is what it is. Obviously, he didn't get away. But I think what we'll do is I want to explore this. I really do. And by exploring this, I'm hoping one that by exploring this, you really enjoy the channel more. You know, maybe I'll carve a niche for myself, because, you know, there are definitely better YouTubers than I am, and part of that's due to experience. You know, I've been doing this less than a year. And there are definitely people more qualified to talk about psychology, philosophy, and things like that, because I only have an associate's degree, and the majority of people discussing this are, you know, doctorates or postdoctoral students. But maybe it's needed that we have people talking about these things that don't have all these credentials, because in some ways credentials and awards can be intimidating. And I've discovered this just in my my SCA days. I'm still in the SCA, but you know, you have people with shiny hats and scarves and belts and favors and things draped, and people, you know, it makes the barrier, it doesn't make the barrier for entry too high, but it makes it feel like it might be high, even if that is a misconception. So let's see how we did. So we started off with 50 PED, and we have 48.15 PED in revenues. So we definitely took a loss. Although I think if 380, hang on, let's do this the other way. So 38 PED, 3802 times 1.01. So realistically, we got 3840 in usable PED and SHRAP. And 1013, oh, bugger all. So it's 48.53. I mean, okay, so I recovered like 30 cents, but you know what? Give me a break. I was trying to be optimistic. I failed. And 337 in repairs. And probably like a PED indicator. So we lost like 5 PED. With skills involved, I'd say that's a win. I would. I think we actually came out in a profit if you get skills involved, because we had the PED out, and when did the panda bear go? Oh, I jumped into sleep near. Okay. So yeah, we'll call that breaking even. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. If you like the direction that you think I'm going with the channel, please let me know. If you don't like the direction you think I'm going with the channel, please let me know. I can only get better if I know. So I really appreciate it. You all have a wonderful night.